So Eric and Larry, I decided to record you guys an instructional video on how to do basic electrical work. You guys obviously have extensive construction experience, but you seem to be afraid of electricity. So we're going to do something real simple. We're going to replace this old 2-prong outlet with a newer 3-prong outlet. First things first, safety. Got my rubber mat, got rubber-soled shoes, got my gloves on, and most importantly, I've got my electrical voltmeter. You don't have to use this one, you can use any variety of them, and in a pinch you can always just use a lamp to test to make sure that these are off. So you want to secure this outlet at the fuse box, so shut the fuse off for this outlet. Once you do that, you want to double check that it's really off using your voltmeter, or like I said, in a pinch you can use a lamp or something else that you can plug in and make sure that it doesn't have power. So put these 2 contacts in, and as expected there's no electrical flow here, and also no electrical flow here. So it's safe to work on. First thing I want to do is take off the faceplate. I'm going to reuse the same faceplate, so I'm going to keep this screw and faceplate, just put those aside for later. Okay, next thing I'm going to do is remove these top and bottom screws for the outlet. Okay, once you get those off, this should come out a few inches so you can work with it, but depending on who installed the last outlet, there may or may not be a lot of space. So I can take off these screws and washers. Since they use these washers, I'm probably going to need to reinstall them, since they allow you to adjust the distance to the junction box so that your outlet is the correct distance from the wall. So we'll keep those aside just in case I need to reuse those. Okay, this is a really simple setup. We've got just 2 wires, one black, one white. So I'm going to disconnect. I'm going to loosen this screw. You don't have to disconnect it completely, but since we're replacing the outlet, it really doesn't matter. Once we get this old outlet out, we're going to keep these wires apart even though we've shut off the power, taken all the right precautions. You always want to treat these wires as if they're live, because you never know when something could go wrong. So we're going to keep these separate. Since I'm in here, I'm just going to do a little cleaning work. Got some more washers in here. They're actually nuts, but they'll work just the same. Pull those out. I'm just going to inspect the wire to make sure it's still in good shape. It looks fairly safe for reuse. The next thing I need to do is I need to find my ground wire. So since this was originally a 2-prong wire, there's no connection for ground. This new 3-prong wire is going to have a green screw, usually at the lower left side of the outlet. You're going to connect your ground wire to this so that this third prong works properly. Okay, I see my ground wire right here, and it's connected to the junction box. That's another way to ground it, but we're going to connect it to the actual outlet. So I'm just going to pull this out. You'll notice that it's a little bit smaller than the other 2 wires. Okay, I'm going to do the ground first. So all I need to do is wrap this wire, make a small loop, hook it into this green screw and then tighten it down. Just needs to be tight enough to hold the wire in place. Now when you make your loop, you also want to make sure to turn the loop in the direction that the screw is going to tighten. So in this case, I'm going to make this loop to the right because when I tighten it, the screw is going to turn clockwise. So I've got my loop. Okay, and it's tightened down nice and snug. Okay, with that, I can start connecting my wires. One side is got silver screws and one side has gold screws. Your white wire is going to be connected to your silver screws and your black wire is going to be connected to the gold screws. Same thing, I want to turn my loop so that it stays intact when I tighten it. If you need to, you can loosen these screws a little bit more to get your loop in place. Try not to loosen them to the point that they fall out just because it takes more time to get them back together. Okay, got that nice and hooked in tight, so I'll tighten this screw down. Okay. So I've connected my black wire to the gold screw on the bottom side. I'm going to connect my white wire to the silver screw on the top side. Going to loosen this just a little bit. Okay, I've got that seated nice and snugly, so I can tighten this screw back in. And since I'm not using these other two screws are if you're connecting more than one outlet together. So you would use the bottom two screws and then the top two screws to connect it to another outlet. Since I'm not using those screws, I'm just going to tighten them in so that they're not loose, so they don't fall out or make noise in the wall later. Okay, so I've got it nice and connected. Now I can use my screws here to tighten it back into the junction box. Since I had to use some, since there were washers in here when I took the last one out, I'm going to put these back in. That should keep the same distance that it had before from the outlet, from the junction box. looks like my ground wire came a little loose, so I'm going to make sure that's tightened in there. Okay, and I will real gently put this back into position. And I'm just going to get the screw partial part of the way in before I finish tightening it up, just so I have the outlet level and in line. Okay, so once I've got it on there, the faceplate is going to give you the distance from the wall, so you want to make sure that your faceplate and your outlet are just the right distance. I'm going to make sure that my outlet is nice and snug. Then I can put my faceplate back into place. I'm going to tighten it real loosely at first. Make sure you don't crack the faceplate, and then slowly tighten it in until it's nice and snug. It doesn't move around. Okay, now you have a brand new 3-prong outlet.